Well, for more on Alibaba's growth and the e-commerce market, I spoke to Ray Wang, principal analyst and founder at Constellation Research. I began by asking him about the current global landscape for e-commerce.
You know, if we follow the growths that are happening around the world where e-commerce is just touching a bit of retail, there is tremendous upside. We think that overall retail in e-commerce is going to get to close to 40 to 50% by 2025 of most sales, and they're on that trajectory. But the beauty with Alibaba is the fact that they are in the markets that matter. When you take a look at population dynamics, you think, wow, Indonesia, you think China, you think the larger markets, those are where the growth is actually happening. And so we're going to see the battlegrounds come in China, India, and Indonesia in the next 3 years.
Now, Alibaba certainly isn't shy when it comes to experimenting with new things and new avenues. We see that they're testing their new staffless smart stores when it comes to grocery shopping. So how do these stores work, and what's really the big appeal?
So the big appeal in these staffless stores really comes from the fact that it's a self-service experience, from not only being able to choose what you want to purchase online, pick, pack, and ship items as you need to, even in the future, being able to pick up the items from the store after you've purchased them online. These are going to be new modes of what we call multi-channel commerce, where organizations, individuals, and even groups and businesses have an opportunity to actually change the way they have a buying experience. And so that's picking up. So the retail expansion, the online expansion, and of course the advertising business and cloud are driving a lot of this growth.
Now, obviously, when a lot of people think about China, they think of this push for a cashless society. We know that Alibaba is really trying to make a push in this space with Alipay. And one way it's doing that is by having this promotional cashless week, but it's also coming up against a key rival in Tencent. What is the competition like in this space?
Well, Tencent is probably the leader in cashless payments and the ability of actually doing transactions. It's really coming from the WeChat backbone, where people are used to online gaming, digital sales, and that's actually driving the ability to move into the payments business. What we're seeing on the Alibaba side is the same push to be able to get into payments. We're going to see that from Amazon. We're going to see that from Facebook in the long run, because payments is really where the action is in terms of being able to take a secure transaction, use identity, and put that into work so that organizations and companies and individuals can actually get to, what we call frictionless commerce.
Now, it's interesting that outside of Asia, Alibaba is still relatively not well known. It's really not a household name, especially in the US. So what do we know about their expansion plans to really shore up that popularity?
One of the things that we saw was that minority stake that they're taking into PT Tokopedia, and we think that's an important move as they get into other markets. Expansion, if you saw recently, as we talked about in Detroit, the ability to help every organization become an Amazon was a really smart phrase from Jack Ma the other day. What he's really trying to say is, look, commerce is a part of everyone's life. If you can be the enabler for commerce for not just small businesses and organizations, there's a market that's going to be out there for them. And so basically what Jack Ma has done is he's basically set up the war between Alibaba and Amazon by going direct in Amazon's battleground. Now, the challenge is Amazon can't really penetrate the Chinese market. It's pretty hard to do given some of the regulations, and also ultimately coming down to the supply chains that are required to make these things happen. So it's an interesting fight, and the fact that he's taking it to the US, he's taking it to other countries like Indonesia, makes a lot of sense. But the real battleground is going to be in India to see who actually dominates for the Indian commerce market.
Now, it's interesting because if you look at the reach of Alibaba, it says it has 466 million active shoppers. To give people some perspective, that's 140 million more people than the entire population of the US. So if you're Alibaba, you see that your value of your company is edging closer to Amazon every day. Where does Alibaba go from here?
Well, the beauty of this is really building the domestic Chinese market and building up the market for import-export trade between other countries and China. And I think that's what they've been trying to set up with their idea of building out these marketplaces and taking AliExpress. AliExpress actually has a lot of usage, as you see from international clients going forward. So we're going to see a lot more growth in larger markets. We're going to see a lot more intercountry trade. And more importantly, I think what Alibaba is trying to do is give everybody the commerce platform that they need to be able to transact in these marketplaces.
And are there any challenges that you foresee, whether it's in putting their finger in too many pies or perhaps regulators really trying to take a good look at what they're seeing in the cashless society? Any headwinds that you can see?
I think the headwinds that are happening are going to be more protectionism among different countries. That's probably the major headwind that they have to face. Opening up of different markets, we'll see what happens with different U.S.-China trade conversations that are going to occur, because a lot of folks would like to be in the Chinese market, and it's pretty restrictive to American companies who are not going to play by the Chinese rules. And the Chinese rules create certain opportunities and barriers of entry for a lot of organizations. And I think being in the home market, Alibaba has an advantage. Now, the competition, the headwinds from Tencent is probably, Tencent and JD.com are probably the two big rivals that keep the competition alive, which is important, as you know. And competition, that type of competition, intense innovation that's going on among these $400 billion giants, is going to be important to watch.